Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Titans. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Connor's circumstances. I thought that was interesting. When he kind of was shaving his head, I was like, alright, that doesn't come up that much, but the whole thing is that the Kryptonians can't normal stuff can't pierce their skin, and I guess that still would apply. Normal scissors wouldn't be able to cut their hair because their hair has the same thing. I don't think that comes up that often, so him having to laser his own. I thought he was going to go with the right fades on the side, kind of almost mohawkish. Not mohawk, mohawk, but more like mullet type of look, but with the faded, the sides being faded. I thought, did not expect him to go full bald. And the moment he did, I was like, oh, cool, you're in your Lex Luthor bag, which he super is. Which, obviously it comes up in this episode, because, May, or rather, Mother Mayhem says, your anger is you're so easily controlled by your blind rage. And it's I wonder which one of his fathers he got that from. And I mean that truthfully, because I think that could be applicable to both Clark or Lex. More likely Lex, because I think Lex kind of puts on the composure look, but he's a lot more angrier than he kind of puts on. But at least, I think Clark has anger too, but he composes himself simply because it's right, I have too much power, and if I ever get angry, it's kind of a bad time for everyone. So, once again, so people don't look at me as a monster, I need to kind of always keep myself in check. So I do think it's probably more so Lex, that means the very human nature of you, but I think Lex always had this, very deep-seated anger, this kind of anger at the world, And Connor kind of shares that. This season ain't the first time we've seen that. How he handled the whole Blackfire situation last season, it's he could be very angry, he can let his anger consume him and he doesn't think logically, but for him, he's no, I'm in my Lex bag, and the fact is, hey, we should stop with the kid gloves off. We should have killed Sebastian when we had the chance. That's what we should do now. Boom, let's kill the lady, let's kill Sebastian, which Dick is attributing it to hey, you're going through a lot right now. It's right. Connor has gotten his ass whooped before, sure. Never to this extent. It's never been this one-sided. He was not also, coming so close to death is also going to trigger something. Also, you watched your dad get murdered by the same thing that was in the process of killing you. So there's going to be a lot of trauma associated with that. So he kind of put the Superman aside and put on more of his Lex Luthor cap. And he's trying to outsmart the bad guys. And Dick's trying to tell him maybe you shouldn't kind of take this approach, but he's right, everyone else on this team is kind of useless right now, but for Dick, it's hey, we've all been where you've been, we've all had to fight our darker sides, but he's this isn't my dark side, this is just me, looking out for me, and I'm sorry if that just, the fact is that's what bothers you, because I think in his mind he's twisting it to be you need me to be so reliant on you, but this is me, I'm so self-reliant right now. It's yeah, you're so self-reliant, you got captured because you thought you'd take her on one-on-one and Mother Mayhem whooped that ass and you got locked up. You kind of screwed the pooch on the plan. Yeah, because you're you're leaning into your legs. It's because the thing is, your father was exactly the same way. Lex's rage would get the best of him. Yes, he's smart, but his own insecurities, his own hatred would get the best of him. That would always, I think, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, I think would be his undoing, because he could get so blinded. And Connor was too, because of his anger, his sadness, his fear. Everything he did this episode was a reaction based out of fear. I think even the anger is based out of fear, So a fear of because I think this is the closest he's come to dying. And once again, it's the same thing that killed his father, the father he never really got to know. Clark is still kind of an enigma. I know enough about him, but Lex, I never got to really know him. And I was about to have that chance, but it was taken away from me by you. So yeah, he just let a lot kind of get to his head. Which, speaking of fathers, Rachel ended up telling Corey, it's right, I saw a bit of that vision you saw last episode, all of us at the park, and the little girl with the red balloon. Yeah, Dick, when he went to the Lazarus pit afterwards, and I sucked up to his nightmares afterwards, I saw that. So Dick hasn't told you about it, which Corey confronts him about it. Why didn't you say anything? And for him, he's like, because he was saying that like these visions and like this destiny isn't written in stone for us. It's all BS. And for her, she's like, right, you're right. These visions and stuff are BS, which he didn't say that to hurt her feelings, because she was actually kind of like the thought of probably like having a child. And it's like, oh, I guess that is BS. That's how you feel about it. I think Dick is coming from the perspective of he doesn't believe he'd be a good father. It's like, he hasn't had the best example, considering how, let's face it, Bruce was pretty fucked up as a father. Kind of did a shitty job. And so I'm sure Dick is like, right, despite all the growing I've done, I don't know if I'm the right, I don't think how do I know I'm not going to screw this kid up like Bruce screwed me up? Like, I'm still screwed up. I'm still figuring things out. Like, who am I to really be a father? And for that reality to come about, because I'm sure he remembers his parents, but probably not enough about them to learn from them, that he wasn't old enough to learn from them what it meant to, so when Bruce was that parent for him, and it's like, yeah, you were all kinds of screwed up, and what if I make that same mistake? But I also think it does tie into the whole thing of like, right, our destinies aren't written in stone. We make our own choices. Our choices matter. Isn't like we're just following some inevitable path. Because I think for Dick, it's like, right, he chose his own path. So it's like, right, are you telling me this was always meant to be? Maybe to some extent it is. But, being able to take destiny into your own hands, because he's like, right, you were told time and time again what was going to happen, and none of it happened for you, Corey. But now Corey's like, yeah, but maybe that's because even the things I thought were supposed to happen, or I'm kind of being told, it's like, no, like you were always supposed to be a spectator and things are always going to play out the way they did. This is your moment to kind of change things, So I think that's at least where I feel like Dick is coming from. I don't think it's like he's completely denouncing it, but I think it speaks volumes that he didn't talk to Corey about it, because he probably thought like, right, like how do I know it was actually real? But now it's like, oh, Corey saw it too. So that's definitely going to be interesting. We're not done with that conversation. We are going to be revisiting that, I'm sure. Plus, there's a Gar situation, which that continues to be wild. That guy who came to visit him, I was like, I've seen that actor before. I want to say maybe in the show Mike and Molly on CBS. I want to say that's that same actor, because I was like, I think it might be him, but maybe not. Either way, he came to Gar, and because Gar's like going through a lot right now, because I guess it's still residuals from last episode after kind of going like all full-blown virus style transformation. But then like that look, like his eyes turning red, and then like him like hearing Connor's voice, and he turns and it's like, wait, what? And then Connor came down and said the exact thing. He's like, wait, did you just see the future? I was like, wait, what's going on here? You expect something like that from Rachel. To be fair, Rachel doesn't have her powers at the time, but what's going on with Gar that he's kind of seeing that? Like, it does seem like some elements of this episode almost make it seem like, has this already technically happened before? And maybe we're shifting and changing destiny on like a causality type of lane or way. I don't know. Jinx says something later on, jumping ahead a little bit, when she gets stabbed, she's like, oh, not again. Now, that could just be like a thing of like, shit, I've been in this situation before. Great, I get stabbed again. I'm on the death's door again. So that could be what that's about. Or maybe there is some like I said, causality thing going on of like, right, we're trying to shift and change things this time because they have played out. We've seen the destiny where it plays out a certain way because it technically already has played out like that. And now it's just a shifting of causality if we got to do things differently. I don't know. I'm probably reading way, way too much into that. But either way, while Connor was, masterminding his plan of basically nullifying the red moon, like by using satellites to hit the moon in certain angles and like that to kind of undo everything, the Titans are trying to come up with a plan to save Sebastian. They end up coming up with teleportation. Really quickly, I do love that everyone's like, man, this has been a wild night. It's like first, like Gar's like, I had to go up against like a magical snake inside of Connor. It's like, yeah, 2 hours before that we had to fight zombies. And then you have Tim being like, and I kissed Bernard, and everyone looks at him and it's like, oh, congratulations. It's like, wow. And Dick's like, yeah, I guess we've all had a big night. And then like, I do love that Gar kind of gives him dap for it, a fist bump, It's like, yeah, everyone's like, yeah, we're happy for you. It's like, yeah. Which I do love that Bernard later on is kind of like, oh, like, I'm glad that you're still here, that I hope that you fighting with the Titans will be later rather than now, because it's like, right, going after this Colt and everything is going to be pretty dangerous, and he doesn't want anything to happen to Tim. It's like, right, we're just kind of, we're starting out, want to focus more on us, so... There was even that thing with Jinx too, where Jinx was kind of, I mean, she's helping out Rachel with her powers, which Rachel admits she liked being normal for a while because she hasn't been normal for a very, very long time, if ever at all. Obviously, her powers, like I think beforehand her powers hadn't really fully manifested, had they? I don't remember. I don't know if that's something she'd always dealt with to some extent in her life, but at the beginning of the series, like, it came out full force. Either way, but for her, it's like, being normal is overrated, which Jinx is like, yeah, I can totally, like, get behind that. And it's like, yeah, you kind of have to eat my hair. It's like pineapple mango. It's like, oh, it's my conditioner. Like, it's like, that doesn't make this any easier. It's like, go ahead, just rip it off like a Band-Aid, and has to eat her hair. And it's like, okay. I was almost wondering, is Jinx fucking with her? And it's like, no, it doesn't seem like that's the case. But she needs to get her powers back, especially because the plan calls for her getting fully charged again, which, jumping around a little bit, I do love that it's like, okay, like, because she had the white hair and everything, I was like, is she going to have the white robe and everything? It's like, yeah, there's the white robe. Once again, I'm basing all this on, like, the OG Teen Titans from, like, years ago, because the Trigon arc, I know, like, that's kind of an end result for her. What I think is interesting, though, her hair stayed purple in that situation. It never turned white, not to my like whitish blonde. I don't think it ever turned that. So I think that's interesting that it stayed blonde too, even when she got her powers back. So she's trying to figure that out. So her powers have shifted. I don't think they'll stay that way. I think, especially because, like, the vision showed her with her purple hair again. So whatever this is, I think is going to be temporary. She's going to go back to, like, being Raven again. When it's all said and done. But for now, her powers have shifted into what they are now. I also love with the whole magic of teleportation and stuff like that. Granted, we didn't get to use it this episode, but I do like that it is, yeah, even though it's magic, it still has your science fictional form of teleportation of things kind of going wrong with, like, yeah, the whole point is, like, yeah, you can disassemble the matter and stuff. The problem is reassembling, because, like, yeah, people pop back up, mouth and foot. It's one of those things of, like, oh, the dangers of teleporting, and you end up, like, you reassemble yourself stuck inside of a wall. There's been plenty of things, like, specifically more so science fictional things that have kind of tackled that, but obviously we're dealing with something on the more mystical, magical side of things in this regard. So I thought that's really fascinating. So, but we didn't actually get to use it in this episode because, once again, Connor kind of screwed the pooch on this plan. So, but all the same time that this was all happening, Mother Mayhem is trying to get Sebastian to become Brother Blood. It's like, right. Yes, the blood motifs and stuff like that. I don't know why I've never commented on before. It's not until he was drinking his mother's blood that I was like, oh, that's got to be funny for Joseph Morgan. It's like, yeah, it's been a while since you've been in this position. Been a couple years, but you're right back at it. With all the blood and him being covered in blood and everything, it should have clicked in my head sooner. Once again, he was a vampire in the Vampire Diaries universe. Well, the Vampire Diaries and the originals and stuff. So it's like, I think it's funny, like, blood sucking and stuff like that. And just being around all this blood. It's like, yeah, it's been a couple years, but you're right back at it to some extent. It really hit me this episode, and it just never really hit before. But regardless, his mother's trying to make him, make this choice because he has to go willingly, but he doesn't want to because he's like, right, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to be responsible for anybody. I wanted to protect my friends. That's the only reason why I'm here. And the transformation, very much like vampirism, can't be complete until you actually drink the blood and submerge himself in the blood in this regard. So, once again, even deeper parallel. But his mother teaches him, like, uses these 3 examples from his life, being like, right, using an example of, you were strong and you had to bend over for the weak. It's like the strong should never have to stipend who they are for the weak. Then there was the whole situation of, like, right, this teacher got on you because you embarrassed him because a kid was smarter than him and he didn't like that. So there's that. He's like, oh no. And which, to be fair, like, we've all had those teachers just like, oh, like, once again, it's the whole point is, oh, doesn't matter that you got the answer right. The problem is you didn't show your work. It's the same principle. He's like, oh, there's a shortcut that means the same thing. It's like, his pride was hurt. He's like, oh, I don't need some schmuck kid telling me my job. It's like, it's that. but it's also it's not a one-to-one, but we've all had that teacher being like, you're supposed I deducted points because you didn't show your work. It's a big thing in math classes, because the whole point is like, no, you need to show your work because you want to know that you understand the formulas. You have to write everything out, even if it's just the simplest stuff mathematically, just for that purpose. It just kind of gave me that same energy. And then finally he broke up with his girlfriend Julie, because for him, he was so sure. It's like, I thought it was more so like, oh, she gave you the gift that your mom had given you, but then she gave it to the girl. Like, I thought like there was a correlation there where you're like, oh, like you're kind of trudging something up again that wasn't always the best for me. But it was just moments of just showing like, right, there's so much you've kind of like, you were so meekish in life, and life kind of put you in that position, and you just kind of accepted it. It's like, why'd you break up with your girlfriend? He's like, I wanted to break up with her because I could see it in her eyes. Like eventually something better would have come along and she would have jumped at the opportunity. So I'd rather end it now rather than her ending it. It's like, right. Hey, I've been in that situation. I've ended relationships just because it's like because I'm the pessimist, and, you know, deep-seated, twisted notion of like, oh, no one could ever really love me. Like, this person, they're going to find someone better and move on, and I might as well end things now before then. It kind of gets like that. I used to be one of those wayward teens who wrote poetry, and I had a girlfriend at the time who was like, are you writing poems about losing me? And I'm like, yeah, because I just assumed like, yeah, like I said, yeah, oh, God. Oh, yeah, I was such a wayward, angsty teen with my poetic words. Oh, God, the cringe. I wish I still had those. I don't have them anymore. There's like one or two on YouTube, but I don't have access to the other ones anymore. Those are long, long gone. Either way, tangents and all that aside. But it was kind of that thing of like, right, you would rather have heartbreak now because you're afraid of getting your heart broken. It's like, that's weakness. It's like, look at this group here. They are here to serve you. They will never leave you. You'll never have to kind of feel alone. They will do anything for you. They believe in you. And it's revealed that the three pillar people, the girl that was brought in by his adopted mother, the teacher and his girlfriend are now part of this cult. Like, I don't know if this was all, there's no way this was like planned out that far in advance. It's like, right, you three represent these kind of issues, these lessons that Sebastian has to learn, so we brought you into the fold, you know? Whether you willingly brought them into the fold of this cult or whether you kind of brainwashed them into doing it. I thought the whole thing was like, oh, like, I didn't expect them to be the three people from the story. That was kind of a neat twist. But even then, like, I thought, like, initially I was like, oh, they're going to kill themselves. And then they revealed who they were. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they're still going to kill themselves for a blood sacrifice, like showing like, oh, we're here for you. We'll do anything for you. Didn't do that. But that's where I thought that was going to go. But as I was talking about a little before, the operation rescuing Sebastian and Connor did not go well, considering like, well, Jinx got stabbed, so there's that. Corey did learn that her powers have increased to the point that it's like she can access about 80% of that power now, and it's like if she uses all of it, it will consume her and kill her. So it's like, yeah, you might have to pump your brakes in certain regards when it comes to that. But yeah, the battle doesn't go their way because Sebastian's like, right, I'm tired of being nothing. I want to be, because he's been, and in his mind is like, I've been nobody for so long. And I think Tim can kind of understand. It's like, right, he's on a journey to try to become somebody, fulfill his destiny. You know, and I think that's why he, out of anyone, was like, come on, Sebastian, you don't have to do this. Because I think there's a little bit of a parallel there. But for Sebastian, it's like, I'm tired of being nothing. I'm tired of being treated like something. With this, I'm not being treated like nothing. I can be something. And so he lets out this roar, and then everyone kind of fades away. I don't know if that's I don't think that's them dying. Maybe he's just like, right, instead, the end all be all is coming, and I'm teleporting you all away type of thing. I don't know, like everyone got wiped except for, like I said, not unless that was them kind of being vaporized from existence, but at the very least, I'm assuming that's them kind of being like teleported away, a la, if you've seen One Piece, you know, how the Straw Hat crew got separated before the impin down, at a point in the story, like all the Straw Hats kind of end up in very, very distant locations from each other. I'll leave it at that with God without going into spoilers. So I was wondering not unless something like that's happening, or whether they straight up died and maybe whatever Gar's circumstances are might be the solution to all this. Like I said, if we're doing like a changing causality type of thing, maybe there's some correlation there, because he was like, take me to the red. It was the message he was supposed to remember, and he did. And like he disappeared very differently than others. He got consumed in this red, and that took him somewhere. Everyone's just kind of like kind of got erased. Like that's why, like, I don't know if that's deafer than just getting teleported elsewhere. But yeah, Sebastian's kind of embracing what he is, who he's meant to be. So where things go from here, we'll ultimately have to wait and see how this all plays out going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.